and I guess all the macro moves of the week. Peter McGuire of XM is joining us. Peter, pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll kick it off with oil because I feel like I'm saying this a lot, but a real risk-on week last week in general with oil rising, a bit of weakness this morning, but so far so good for oil. Can it last? I mean, this is the big question as we head into later May.
Well, good morning, Ingrid. Can it last? I think it'll probably run out of steam over the next matter of days. It's had a very, very strong move, as we are very much aware of, from that $10 baseline for WTI and Brent accordingly. So, there's plenty of push there as from a trading perspective to see if it can have any legs to go higher. But I think it's going to really have some handbrakes coming on board. We've seen that big push from Trump and what he did with MBS and Putin to try and, re-engage and have everyone on the same page. And I feel as though from a consumption side, it's going to be very, very weak numbers leading into the rest of May and certainly June.
Has OPEC production cuts helped at all? I mean, this is the question. We've also seen companies, I guess, playing a part in this as well, big majors. How's this sort of helping the situation?
Well, I think certainly OPEC's, everyone's assisted to the whole framework, and we're very much aware that, the numbers that you were using as far as consumption, 100 million barrels a day, down to that 70 plus million, it's really taken a hit. So it's a concerted effort. Producers are really identifying what the next pathway forward is, and it's a very, very difficult landscape to really navigate through because, quite simply, we've never been down to these waters before, and they're very much uncharted. And I think it's just a matter as far as consumption and really behaviour, how quickly does the lockdown turn around, certainly in the States and certainly across Asia.
What about, speaking of Asia, China versus the US and these trade... I cannot believe we're talking trade wars again right now in the middle of a global pandemic, but here we are, and apparently talks have been more constructive. That's helped boost risk sentiment. What's your read on the situation?
I think you're probably right. I mean, you've got the two largest economies, and they were at each other's throats when you're thinking about it over the last matter of weeks, and Pompeo's statements and the rebuttal from China and, Wuhan and all of those sort of inputs. It's very difficult to identify what the next path is. We understand where China is. We've seen a little bit of a turnaround there, or quite a strong turnaround as far as that growth number. And is that going to really I suppose, manifest and really get stronger over the days and weeks ahead as far as reporting? You've got industrial output, you've got retail sales and a number of other key factors and key numbers coming out this week, well, I think on Friday in China. So what the storyline is, Ingrid, may be a different story this time next week.
Yeah, okay, so that's key. What about gold?
Gold, I'd say, you're still holding at that king dollar. Are we going to see weakness there as far as dollar? You're looking at what happens as far as the Eurozone, and are they really going to push forward as far as from a political framework to really try and, stimulate their economy and far more aggressively? So I think you could see further pressure down on that king dollar, maybe to that 98 zone, which in turn I think is going to push gold higher. So it's all about where does dollar play, where is risk, and what numbers are coming forward, I think are the key drivers to really push gold higher.
Surely you've got to see that US dollar coming off from here. I mean, just given the conditions we're seeing globally and a potential reopening of economies worldwide, I mean, this is all negative for the US dollar, right?
Yep. I agree, Ingrid. I mean, that king dollar, it's been really, between range bound 98 to 102 as far as, that US dollar index. And I feel as though that time has come, or it's coming. We can't get away from Mnuchin's numbers. That's frightening to think 25% Americans. And is that truly the headline? Is that truly the number to believe? It could be well in excess of that. So all of those numbers get released. We're understanding what impact it's going to have to US. And you've got those inflation numbers tomorrow. You've got producer numbers on Wednesday, retail and production numbers Friday for the States. And that really is the storyline. I think that real damaging data is ready to be released. And this is where it starts. Basically from, the start of May was the horrific numbers moving forward. And they're only going to, I think, grow as each week wears on for the dollar.
Before we go, Dr. Copper, I'd like to get a check-in on this one, given its barometer for the global economy. How's it been tracking?
Well, it's pretty much all over the shop. It's had a little bit of volatility, Ingrid, but nothing dramatic to the upside. I feel as though that it's going to be many months until we really see, a really big push for the base metals and certainly copper over the short run. So I think it's going to be a pretty fair bit of volatility in that market and nothing dramatic to really report other than it's not a bad trade if you're on the right side of it. I think there's other markets to look at before you look at copper.
All right, Peter McGuire, we really appreciate your time as always from XM there. Thank you very much for your analysis.